Hello and welcome to the Podcast Engineering Show. My name is Chris Curran, and we really talk about the hardcore audio engineering aspects of podcast production, and we go deep with guests. So every other week I interview a guest, and then in the in-between weeks I do these episodes, which is just me with no music in the beginning, none of my sidekick Barry, and what I'm going to do is just... Well, I have a couple announcements, which is always cool, and then I'm going to overview the Daily Goody blog posts from the last couple weeks. So I don't know if you're aware, but every day I put out a little mini blog post that is just a little tidbit of good information with regards to producing podcasts. Don't expect too much from them. But if you go to the website, you can sign up for that, podcastengineeringschool.com. And so this episode is just going to be me overviewing the last 14 little mini daily blog posts, so that'll be fun. But a couple announcements first. I did revamp my website, and now it has a shopping cart and all that, so I don't know. I mean, you might not care, but yeah. In fact, a bird just flew into the window. Oh, man, I hope he's okay. Anyway, I have a shopping cart now, so if you want to sign up for Podcast Engineering School, you can do that and get, there's a coupon code field, so, some of the affiliates are offering a little discount to Podcast Engineering School. And also, if you or anyone you know is interested in being an affiliate for Podcast Engineering School, let me know. I mean, I've already talked to many listeners, I wouldn't say many, quite a few listeners who want to just help me promote my school and then, earn some money from that. So if you're interested in that, just contact me through the website. And pretty soon, I'm going to be talking about the AAC format versus the MP3 format. And actually, I was talking to Alan Tepper today, or texting back and forth with him about this. And actually, this episode is going to be my little trial into the AAC format. So the actual file is going to be a .m4a file, kind of the same file Brad Hargis was talking about from the Cinema Guys was that last episode or a couple episodes ago? I don't know. I forget. It's not in front of me. Anyway, Brad Hargis, he mixes his show down to an M4A file. So I'm going to try it, and I'm going to try and do it, I'm going to make the AAC file. I'm going to convert my episode into an AAC using Fission by Rogue Amoeba. Anyway, I'm going to have Alan Tepper on soon, and we're going to talk all about that because I'm finding some good things about AAC format. And also, I think in the beginning, like literally in the beginning of podcasting, AAC was not, as popular, but now it's more popular, and apparently it's compatible with everything. So anyway, we'll talk more about that. The next semester of Podcast Engineering School starts April 16th, so that's cool. And then, of course, I'll be at PodFest in Orlando March 6th to the 9th, which is coming up in, 4 weeks? So I'll be there. If you're going to be there, stop by our booth, Podcast Engineering School. Also, upcoming episodes, I actually got ahead of myself. I recorded 3 interviews. So one is with Brian Ensminger. He's a Podcast Engineering School graduate, and he's a great guy. He's also a podcast editor, and we talk quite a bit about Hindenburg, which is kind of cool, which I've been looking into recently too. Then I recorded an episode with Brody Brazil, who's a big fan of the show, and he's a TV broadcaster with NBC Sports. Yeah, he covers a couple pro teams. Anyway, that was a great interview. And also Colin Gray from thepodcasthost.com. So over the next, 4, 5, 6 weeks, these episodes will be coming out. All right, so let's get to it. The Daily Goody. We're going to start with February 13th and go backwards. So I'm actually recording this on February 13th, and it's going to come out tomorrow, which is February 14th. So happy Valentine's Day, or happy VD. I remember a long time ago, when my grandma was still alive, she on a card or something, she wrote Happy VD, and it, she meant Valentine's Day, but anyway, okay, terrific. All right. So the Daily Goody from February 13th was, and just so you can sign up to get these in your email every day, or like a weekly summary as well. So you can get, if you want that, you can get it on the website. So February 13th, your goal with recording remote guests. And the first line says it all. Capture their audio as well as possible in terms of clarity, level, and lack of distracting sounds. That's it. I mean, in the recording process, you just want to capture it as best you can. And so, you can sound check the guests, and you can do a lot of things to avoid a lot of problems. And I highly recommend doing that in the recording process, because then in post-production, it saves you a lot of time. So the next post, again, we're going backwards, and I'm not even going to say the dates anymore because I don't know that it's that important. Well, I guess I will. February 12th. A listener asked me, why are you not using your 416 on your podcast? Now, the 416 is the Sennheiser shotgun mic I bought recently, which is a really great mic, and a lot of people use it for voiceover. And I kind of tried using it, here at my desk where I record my podcasts, and it's a condenser mic. So what happened was, even though it's a shotgun and it has a pretty tight pickup pattern, meaning whatever you point it at, it's going to pick up well, and it's going to sort of reject everything else. But here's the thing, it's a condenser, so it's really sensitive. And so in my space here, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later, I don't have like an official studio with all kinds of soundproofing and everything. So it just picked up a lot of noise, including the HVAC unit across the house. So I just decided that I like the mic that I'm on right now, which is my RE20, and I like, being right up on it, an inch away from my RE20. That just, for me, it sounds really good, and it doesn't pick up a lot of little room noise and house noise from the background. So my 416, I'm glad I bought it because I'm going to use it for many other things, but I'm probably not going to use it for my podcast. All right, February 11th. What is an audio plugin? And you might know this, but plugins are just simply audio processors which you can use inside your software. So your DAW software or your editing software, whatever software you're using, plugins are like little mini apps that you can open up and use it to process audio. So there's EQs, compressors, and all kinds of plugins. And everything you can think of, they make a plugin for it. And so that's all they are. I really love plugins. I use a ton of plugins, and especially the plugins that are modeled off of like classic audio gear. So, the classic compressors from the 60s and 70s that sounded really awesome. Well, they make plugins that modeled those units. So those are the kind of plugins I especially love. Okay, February 10th, signal flow in audio production. So signal flow is an audio engineering term. It simply means like, where does the signal flow from and to and through, right? So literally, where does it start? Okay, it starts in my microphone, then it goes through the wire and into my audio interface, and then it flows from there into the computer. And a lot of signal flow is very simple, especially in podcasting. But if you're using a channel strip, or if you're using a mixer, or if you're sending a mix minus, anyway, it's signal flow. It's really good to know where your signal is going and in what order and all that. Mostly in case there's a problem. If there's a problem, it's much easier to diagnose a problem if you know exactly where your signal is going at every step. Because if you don't know where your signal's going and in what order, it's much harder to diagnose a problem and all that. So anyway, there's more to signal flow, but that's just generally what signal flow is. Okay, February 9th. What are A to D and D to A converters? So A to D stands for analog to digital. So an A to D converter is simply, it turns an analog signal into a digital signal. That's all it does. And that happens like when you speak into a microphone and then you're recorded on a computer. That process, usually your audio interface or the mic or the computer. Anyway, somewhere the signal's being converted from analog to digital by an A to D converter. And the opposite is also true, D to A converter, so digital to analog. Whenever you listen back to any audio from a computer, in the computer, it's a digital file, but as it plays it back, it sends it out the headphone jack. It has to change it from digital back to analog so that it can go into your earbuds and you can hear it. So that's D to A converter, digital to analog. And that's just, that's just a basic thing. That's good to know. Anyway, there's obviously, with all these daily goodies, there's a lot more we could go into, but the point is just to sort of little quick things to help you understand things. All right, February 8th, PES Certificate of Completion. Well, I just basically said that for the folks who go through podcast engineering school and finish the class project, you will get a certificate of completion, and that you can, advertise that on your website and show that to potential clients that, hey, I'm a real podcast engineer. I went through podcast engineering school. All right, then it was the last episode of this show where Brad Hargis from the Cinema Guys was talking about M4As. So that was a fun episode, and already some of you were making fun of me, like, dude, you really love his show. I guess I told him I liked his show a few times, and I don't know, maybe some people thought I went overboard, but I don't think so. All right, next one, February 7th. Finding editing clients. So if you do want to edit podcasts for others, how do you find them? And, again, just from a high level, just introduce yourself to a lot of individuals and companies and just, gently offer your services or just let them know that you exist. Maybe just say, hey, look, I produce and edit podcasts. If you ever have questions about podcasting or if you ever need help with that, let me know. I'll help you. Even if you don't hire me, I can maybe help you. Sometimes it's good to have someone to talk to. And when you take that approach with companies and individuals, they love that because then you're a resource that's willing to help. You're not just trying to sell them something, right? And of course, you got to be a professional. I think that kind of goes without saying, but, being, knowing what you're doing, knowing what you're talking about, returning emails promptly, all that stuff, right? Returning phone calls. Anyway, that's called being a professional and very important, obviously. Frankly. All right, February 6th, creating MP3s using the highest quality conversion. And it's funny because I wrote this post before I started to think about switching to AAC over MP3, but that's not what I'm talking about in this post. What I'm talking about in this post is that in some software, like I remember SoundForge Pro, which I used to use on my PC, it actually gave you 3 choices of quality when you were creating an MP3. Like one would be like the fastest encoding, but it was the lowest quality, right? So I don't know, if you just really, for some reason, wanted to create your MP3 really fast, but you didn't care about the quality, then that's what you would choose. Then, of course, there's a medium setting. And then there's the highest quality, which obviously is the slowest encoding, right? It's going to take longer to encode it, because it's encoding it at a higher quality. And obviously, frankly, you want to encode your final episodes at the highest quality. It kind of goes without saying, but anyway, one way that folks get tripped up with this is that, like, for instance, when I started using SoundForge Pro, 7-8 years ago? Actually, I've been using it for many years, but when I started, I've been using it since before 2000, but I started using it for podcasting about 2012. And literally the first few days I was using it, I created an MP3, probably the first one. I created the MP3 and then I listened to it and I'm like, oh my God, that sounds terrible. The bad MP3 sound when it sounds like it's underwater and there's like this swishy sound. It's horrendous. And I heard that and I'm like, what is this? And I think I actually emailed them and they told me, oh yeah, they told me about this setting, low quality, medium quality, and high quality. And then anyway, that's when I switched it. So just be aware. There's obviously in software, there's a ton of settings and you just got to be aware. Make sure that you're on the highest setting. Okay, February 5th, deleting portions of breaths. All right, now look, when a human being speaks, he or she takes breaths. It's natural. It's normal. It's not a problem. But here's the thing. When you're editing a podcast, sometimes just by accident, you can edit out half of someone's breath and it just sounds really weird. So anyway, it's a short little post, but the whole point was that just be careful when you're editing with breaths. So don't chop breaths in half. It'll sound really, really unnatural. And anyway, I even know some people who take out all the breaths, and that's probably, well, I won't say it's worse, but that's just as bad. It sounds so unnatural. I mean, maybe for some voiceover work, they might not want any breaths or something. I get that, but for a podcast, yeah. All right, February 4th. Oh, I forgot about this. Shep's Omnichannel custom settings for your voice. So I'm starting to offer this service, and it's with the Shep's Omnichannel plugin. It's a plugin, and it's a great plugin because it's high quality, and it has every type of processing you could want to do with a podcast, with a voice on a podcast, like EQ, compression, gating, saturation, filters, de-essing, limiting. It's all in one plugin, and it's actually really high quality. So what I decided to offer was, if you or anyone, let's say Ralph M. Rivera sends me, he wants to do it, and he sends me a short clip of his voice. And on my computer, I'll use the Shep's Omnichannel to tweak his voice, and I'll EQ it, I'll compress, I'll do everything I do, right, as an audio engineer with a lot of experience, and I'll get the settings just so it sounds really good, and then I'll make a video of myself doing it, and then I'll tell Ralph all the settings. So then Ralph at his house, in his software, in his Shep's Omnichannel, because he has to own the Shep's Omnichannel, which often goes on sale for $29, so it's not going to break the bank. But anyway, he will dial those settings. He will dial my settings into his Shep's Omnichannel, and then he'll sound great. Then, of course, he can tweak it to his liking. But anyway, I think a lot of people might like this service because, EQing and compression and like de-essing and what order do you do them in and how much compression, it can be a lot for some people. So, to pay, I'm charging $195 for this, $195. To pay $195 to get your voice tweaked up so it sounds really good. For some people, that makes sense. So anyway, that's actually now available on my website. If you go to the shop or the cart the shop, I don't know. I just, like I said, I just updated the website. I don't know if I have a link for the shop. Anyway, you'll find it. Just podcastengineeringschool.com/shop. Okay. February 3rd. My frustration with Ringer. So Ringer is actually a very good service for recording, conversations over the internet. And I really like Ringer. I pay for it. I've been paying for it for 3 years. I think I might have mentioned this, but I'm not going to go too far into this post. You got to read it because it's longer than the others. But basically, my only beef with Ringer, there's a couple. One, it doesn't have any chat functionality. Not the end of the world, but it's a little annoying. Okay, adding people after the session starts is a nightmare because you have to start a whole new session. I don't know why you can't just add people and have them show up and jump into the session. But literally, everyone has to hang up and go away, and then you have to create a new session, send out new invitations to everybody for a new session, and then everybody has to join again. It's a little clumsy. And look, and if I'm wrong about that, if that's not the case, because I think that's the case, but if I'm wrong, please someone tell me if there's a good way to do that. And then of course the big thing with Ringer, it's an audio quality problem that I have with it, is because they only record at 22 kilohertz sample rate, which means they only capture frequencies up to 11 kilohertz, which is, you're cutting off about half, you're cutting off a ton of high frequencies. So the recordings from Ringer, they just don't sound like crisp because they just chopped off everything above 11K. So from 11 kilohertz to 20 kilohertz, which you can hear as a human being, Ringer doesn't capture that. And that, as an audio engineer, that's like the biggest red flag ever. And the only reason I have Ringer is because, if Zencastr or Squadcast breaks, then I use Ringer. And like I said, Ringer's very good, and Ringer is good too because it has a mobile app which works on Android and iOS. So that's really good. No one else has a good mobile app like that. But so anyway, those are the things I don't like about Ringer. But all in all, Ringer is it is a very good platform, definitely. So please don't think I'm bashing Ringer. It's just a couple things about them that I wish were better. Okay, February 2nd, Groundhog Day. Overdoing it when processing audio. Okay, overdoing it. This is a rookie mistake. You bring up an EQ or a compressor and you instead of just adding a little bit of compression, you add a ton of compression. And instead of like adding a little with an EQ, instead of adding a little bit of low frequency, you add a ton of low frequency because you want to sound like the big radio guy. So here's the thing. The remedy for this is to just use the EQ and compression, use whatever you want, try to make it sound good, but then usually dial it back a little bit. So for instance, if you're EQing, if you're adding a bunch of low end to your voice so it sounds really big and like the radio, let's say you add 6 dB. Well, if you think 6 dB sounds good, I would just back it down and only add 4 dB and just leave it there for like a few minutes. Listen to it like that for a couple minutes in relation to the other voices in the episode. And 4 might be good, or maybe 6 was good, and then you have to boost it up. It's okay, but you don't want to add too much. You're kind of like you're fixing one problem, but then you're causing another problem. So go easy, go the middle way, as the Buddha said, right? Don't go too far one way or the other. All right, February 1st. February Fool's Day, February 1st. Okay, my frustration with not having a soundproof studio. So, okay, like I said before, I'm in my basement. It's a finished basement, but it's not an official studio. And so there are other noises in the house. There's other people in the house. And so sometimes when I'm recording and I hear those other people, or, my wife starts running the dryer, or, there's a lot of things that can happen. And I just, sometimes I feel frustrated that I don't have an official studio that's actually pretty soundproof. So, all right, then you had my goodie bag from the last week, and then the last one we'll cover today is, the Rodecaster Pro. I mean, I'm sure you've heard about this over the past month or so. Well, no, they launched a few months ago, like 3-4 months ago, the Rodecaster Pro. It's that unit. It's about $600 from Rode, where you can plug in 4 mics and you can have someone join on the phone through Bluetooth, and really nice unit. When it came out, though, it was not, you were not able to record in multitrack, meaning that it took all the 4 microphones and the person on the phone and all your sound clips, and it just recorded it. It just mixed it all down to one file, one stereo file. And for us audio producers and engineers, we don't like that. We want everything on its own separate track because I want to mix it later. Because when you're doing it live, it's like someone's voice might be louder than another person's voice, So you need to be able to fix that later. So the big news, of course, it's not that big news anymore. You probably know now, or very soon, I should say, Rode will allow multi-track recording with the Rodecaster Pro. And they're going to allow something like 17 or 18 tracks or something. So not only the mics, not only the guests coming through a phone Bluetooth connection, but also all the sound clips. And so it sounds good. Anyway, good for you, Rode. They listen to the people, and they're making it's just a firmware update, right? They don't have to change anything physically on the unit. It's just the firmware and how it interacts with the computer. So now you could probably connect it to your computer, and in your DAW, you can record everything in your DAW multitrack. Or they do have it's a memory card inside the Rodecaster Pro. And I don't know. Anyway, I don't know exactly if you'll be able to record multitrack on that. I would assume you would. But anyway, it will allow multitrack soon. That's really good news for everybody. And believe it or not, that's the last day I had to cover. So we are done. Are you done? I'm done. So thank you for listening to the Podcast Engineering Show. We'll be back next week with an awesome interview. And again, or I don't know if I always say it. If you have any questions or if you need help Or if you want to know if something sounds good, please just send me a message through the website. And, if you want to send me a piece of audio, let me hear what you're doing. Send me a piece of audio. So, we'll probably have to make contact through email first, and then I'll reply to your email, and then you can reply to that and attach audio or whatever the easiest way is. Oh, I guess you could actually, when you contact me through the website, I guess you could put a download link for your audio file in there. Anyway, I haven't obviously thought about this before I started recording. So anyway, thanks everybody for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace out.